This is video compression techniques. What are the video compression techniques are used? So video compression in the sense it may be used in interpersonal or interactive or entertainment. If it is interpersonal, it is video telephony or video conference. Interactive in the sense it is access to store the access to uh, collect the videos which is stored in the various forms. And entertainment in the sense it is digital TV mode or movie on demand or video on demand. Compression principle in the sense with respect to the compression, video is simply a sequence of digitized picture. Sometimes it is also called as a moving picture. In terms of frame and picture are interchangeable. Frame we can say you can define as a frame or it may be picture. The group of picture if it is running with the particular thing, that is we call it as a frame. Each frame by frame is running, in the sense it is motion picture. So normally for one motion picture for 1 second nearly 16 to 24 frames are required for one motion picture. So one approach to compressing the video source, apply the JPEG algorithm, Joint Picture Experts Group algorithm, to each frame independently. This approach is known as moving JPEG, that is JPEG. The drawback of the JPEG is typical compression ratio is obtained with the JPEG 10:1 and 20:1 ratio. So neither which is large enough to on its own to produce the compression ratio are needed with the video. In practice, in addition to the spatial redundancy present in the each frame, the redundancy is often present between the set of frames. In general, only small portion of the each frame is involved with any motion that is taking place. For example, the movement of the person, lips and eyes in the video telephone applications, and the person or the vehicle moving across the behind the screen in a movie. That is the difference. So the typical scene in a movie has minimum duration of 3 seconds, assuming that the frame refresh rate, that is 60 frames per second, or each scene is composed with the minimum of 180 frames. Thus by sending only information relating to those segments of the each frame, we have the movement associated with that. We can save the bandwidth when the difference of the frames are used. The technique that is used to exploit the high correlation between the successive frame to predict the content of many of the frames. This is based on the combination of preceding and some instance succeeding frames. So instead of sending the source code, the video as a set of individually compressed frame, just a selection is sent in the form and for the remaining frame. Only the difference between the actual frame contents and the predicted frame contents are sent. The accuracy of the prediction operation is determined by how well any movement between the successive frame is estimated, is known as motion estimation. As the estimation process is not exact, additional information must also be sent to indicate any small difference between the predicted and actual position of the moving segments involved. This is known as compensation. So motion estimation and compensation are the two techniques are used in this one. So next is the frame types. In the frame types there are two basic types of compressed frame: the frames that are encoded independently and frames that are predicted. The first one is known as intra-coded frames, that is frames are encoded independently, is known as iframes. Iframes are again predicted in two forms, that is predicted on P frames and bidirectional on B frames. So above frame is also known as intercoded or interpolation frames. Intercoded and interpolation frames. So iframes is encoded with the reference to any other frame. Each frame is treated as a separate digitized picture, like Y, CB and CR matrices are encoded independently using the JPEG algorithm. The quantization threshold voltage are used for the same. discrete cosine transform coefficient. The level of compression obtained with iframe is relatively small, so therefore it would appear the best if they are limited. So first frame is relating to the new scene in a movie. In practice, however, the compression algorithm is independent of the contents frame and has no knowledge and the start and the end of the scene. Iframe must present in the output stream at regular intervals in order to allow the possibility of the content in the encoder. So if an iframe was corrupted, then in case of movie, the predicted frames are based on the contents of the iframe. So complete scene would be lost, would be totally unacceptable. Therefore, iframe inserted into the output stream is relatively frequent. The number of frames between the successive iframe is known as group of picture or GOP. It is represented as n and typically value of n is 3 to 12. Next one is p frame. The encoded p frame is relative to the content, either preceding iframe or preceding p frame. The p frames are encoded using combination of motion estimation and motion compensation, and the higher levels of the compression can be obtained. The number of p frame between each successive pair of iframe is limited, since any errors present in first p frame will be propagated to the next. The number of frame between the p frame and immediate preceding iframe is also called as prediction span. It gives the symbol m. The typical value range from 1 through to 3. Next one is a b frame. In that b frame, the motion estimation involves comparing the small segments of two consecutive frames for the differences, and the differences should be detected, and search is carried out to determine which neighboring segments the original segment has been moved. In order to minimize the time for each search, the search region is limited to the few neighboring segments. Application of such video telephony, the amount of movement between the consecutive frames is relatively small. This approach works well in the application that involves very fast moving objects. However, it is possible for the segment to have outside of the search region. To allow for this possibility, the application of such movies, in addition to p frame, the second type predicted frame is used. So these b frames, their contents are predicted using search region in both past and future frames. In addition to that, occasional moving objects also captured. This also provides a better motion for the estimation when object moves in front of the or behind the another object. In comparison between the p frame and b frame, in the sense both are encoded by considering the contents of the current and frame relative to the content immediately preceding to the frame. In case of b frame, the three frame contents are involved. One is immediately preceding or p frame, current framing being encoded, and immediately succeeding frame. So this results in increasing the encoding delay, which is equal to the time to wait for the next I or p sequence. If the frames provides the highest level of the compression, because they are not involved in the coding of other frames, they do not propagate others. So decoding, in the sense information relating to iframes can be decoded immediately in order to recreate the original frame. When p frame, the received information is first decoded, then the resulting information is used. Together, the decoded content creates the preceding p frame. If it is a b frames, in the sense the retrieved information is first decoded, and the resulting information is then used. Together, both immediately preceding I or p contents are immediately derived from the decoded frames. So in order to minimize the time required to decode each b frame, the order of encoding, that means transmission, is the frame is changed. So preceding and succeeding frames are available when b frame is received. And pb frame, in the sense it does not refer any new frame, but rather than the two neighboring frames. So that is nothing but the pb frame. And D-frame, in the sense, it is defined for the application like movie or video demand applications. With this type of application, the user at home can select and watch the particular movie which is stored in the remote server connected to the network like Netflix and Amazon Prime. So the selection of operation is performed by means of set-top box, or with VCR, or it may be a fast forward through the movie. This requires the compressed video to be decompressed. So to support this function, encoded video stream also contains D-frame, which is inserted in the regular intervals throughout the stream. These are highly compressed frames, ignoring the other kind of decoding frames like P and B. In case of discrete cosine transform, the compression algorithm, the DC coefficient is associated with the 8x8 block of pixel. Both the luminance and 2 chrominance signals are related to this one. Thank you.